We're back and we're thrilled to be joined by this week's Beast of the Week, Jim Acosta. Jim, once called the White House's favourite reporter by Politico and now called by Trump a major sleazebag. Acosta built his career as a frontline journalist, press room sparring partner, and ultimate MAGA lightning rod. He spent years challenging presidents, fact-checking in real time, and even had his press pass revoked after a now infamous clash with Trump. After close to 20 years at CNN, Acosta walked away last month, leaving his audience with a chilling final message. Don't give in to the lies. It sounds like a popular TV character's last words whispered to a low battery camera in a basement. Trump, of course, took the bait, firing off a Truth Social post calling Acosta one of the worst, most dishonest reporters in journalistic history. So what's Jim Acosta up to now? Let's find out. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
Great to be with both of you. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to meet. I'm so excited to meet you. I don't feel like we've ever really met before. We've certainly never had a long conversation. So this is
True.
exciting.
That's all true. So let's do it. Let's have that conversation. Why not?
What do we even call you now? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you still a journalist? Are you an activist? What is when you
I'm
go
not a
independent?
sleazebag. I'll start there.
Are you sure you're not a sleazebag?
I'll wear that name as a badge of honor. He saves his worst nicknames for I feel like the best people. So hey, I'll put myself in that category. No, I'm still a journalist. I consider myself an independent journalist now. I've started up a podcast on Substack. You can also find it on Apple Podcasts and YouTube and so on. And I'm just, listen, I could have taken a few weeks off, grown a beard, traveled to the Antarctic, but I decided to jump right into this. There's so much news going on. I mean, my goodness, when he comes into office and pardons 1,600 rioters and insurrectionists from January 6th, which was an act of aggression against American democracy. I think that was it. The gauntlet was thrown, and you just have to jump right in and keep going. And as we've seen since then, it's been sipping from a fire hose of just unbelievable news day after day.
I was going to say, I don't think it's true that the audience has switched off. I mean, there's a sort of common intelligence at the moment that people are overwhelmed by it. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing an audience hungry to figure out what on earth is going on right now, because it feels like chaos.
It is. It's like a fire hose. And so how are you navigating that? Like, you didn't even give yourself any time off. So now you're like currently in transition, doing your own tech. We've all.
Also, why can't we see you?
Yeah.
Why can't we see you?
I
Jim,
don't know.
We should be able to see you. Can you put your camera on?
It
I've
should
just
be on.
realized.
Is it not on?
No, it's not on. This is the problem.
What
You've gone
on
from
earth
being
are you
fully
talking about?
starved.
I can see myself.
Well, that's
No,
not good. I think
I'm
you should
on.
be able
You should
to
see me.
We can't see you.
Ask Jesse. Jesse says he can.
Jesse,
see
our
me?
producer, is now looking in front of the camera as if I'm making up the fact that we can't see you. Oh, okay.
I see myself and I see
I think
you.
you do see us. Well,
I
that's good.
do, yes, and you both look very lovely.
Well, what print do you think Sam's cardigan is while we're waiting for...
It's a
It's a
quiz.
leopard print. It's a very sexy leopard print, I
Thanks.
think,
He
is
says
what
it's
I see
leopard
there.
print. Sam says it's cheetah. I think it's giraffe.
Giraffe.
Yeah, it looks like a giraffe. Oh, there he is. That's
There
better.
you are.
Yo, you've joined us. Much better. Okay.
That's right.
What were we
all of those
discussing?
animals would be protected by the Wildlife Service if those people weren't laid off by the government.
Oh,
Well, I
my
think they would be
God.
shot at, actually, by Don
Yeah.
Jr., who's up for
That's very
illegal
possible.
hunting
Absolutely.
trip right in Italy at the moment.
Was
You know-
when you observe this world, because now you're independent, were there times when you were working for CNN, your big network home for a long, long time? Were there times when you were observing the independent media and thinking, there's something there for me? Like that freedom looks very delicious to me.
Yeah. I mean, I can't talk at all about, where I was. It's just not my style.
Of course not.
I love all my friends there. But, the beautiful part about going independent and doing what we're all doing right now is that you can just tell the truth in an unvarnished way and just, let her rip. And,
Right.
I've always done that. I've tried to always do that throughout my career. But now I'm choosing my own guests. I am writing my own scripts, doing a lot of the work that I enjoy doing as a journalist, as a reporter. And so that part of it is a lot of fun. Occasionally, my dog Duke will jump into the podcast, and because he hasn't had enough attention in the last 5 minutes, and he'll make a cameo appearance, and all of that is fun too. And the audience seems to like it. My sense of it is that right now, and you were talking about this a few moments ago, what the public is really craving is for folks to just tell it like it is. Don't tiptoe around things.
Right.
Don't tiptoe through the tulips. We just don't have time for that. When Trump comes into office and he basically hands the presidency over to Elon Musk, who proceeds to go through various departments and agencies of the federal government, vacuuming up all sorts of private personal data, and laying off thousands of people who are in charge of the FAA, people who are in charge of cancer research, protecting our nuclear infrastructure, and so on. And so there's just no time for bullshit. And just yesterday, we saw the president of the United States pick up where he left off when he was president the first time around. He accused Ukraine of starting the war in Ukraine, which is an outrageous lie. And so you need people out there calling this stuff out. I think that's what people want, and that's what I'm hoping to do.
Well, so I guess how do you are there stories that you feel are already, we're just a few weeks in, and I feel like stories are getting lost and they're getting left behind. The wake is tremendous. So are you seeing it as an opportunity to have stories re-emerge that you think we need to call attention to? Like, what in your mind are we not kind of paying enough attention to writ large?
Yeah, right now, a couple of weeks ago, I was saying, watch out for Ukraine, and now it's here in the forefront. I do think, folks might say this is inside the Beltway navel gazing, this whole controversy over what Trump and his team are doing to the Associated Press. I think it's highly important. When the Associated Press makes an editorial decision to continue to call the Gulf of Mexico, and they're booted out of the Oval Office, they're booted off of Air Force One, I believe it's a test case for what Trump and his team would like to do to other members of the press corps. I think that's a highly important story that you're just not seeing enough on the evening newscasts and elsewhere. And the public needs to understand, we cannot go, I talk about this on my show all the time, the American way of life. You can't have a situation in this country where the White House is going after the press because they refuse to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, which is just one of the top 5 dumb things that he's ever done is renaming the Gulf of Mexico.
I'm not sure it makes the top 5, actually, because there are many other things he's done too. But you've called for other members of the White House press corps to take a stand on this. What do you think would be an effective protest here?
First of all, the Associated Press, has to be considering their legal options at this standpoint. Their First Amendment rights are being violated. Their free press rights are being violated. And I think they have to consider a legal challenge, as I had a legal challenge against the White House when they took my press pass. I think going beyond that, once that challenge is filed with the courts, other members of the press corps, as what happened with my press pass case, should be filing amicus briefs with the court and saying, listen, we support the Associated Press. Now, what the press could do, and I've talked about this to some extent, they could decide that there are certain parts of the president's schedule that they're not going to cover. Perhaps the press doesn't go into the Oval Office for an Oval Office photo opportunity. Perhaps the press doesn't go on a trip with the president to wherever he's going to deliver his message of the day. And I think one of the things I try to tell people all the time is one of the most important things in the world to Donald Trump is having those cameras around him. And if those cameras are taken away, he will start to learn a lesson that he can't mess with us. Now, there are folks in my profession who will say, no, we can't do that. How do you cover the president? I think it may be worth exploring as an option if this continues.
He has his own media ecosystem, though. Like, is it so important for him to be a feature player in kind of like traditional media? Like, you think
think about how much he covets the cover of Time magazine. Remember when the Time magazine cover came out and Elon Musk was on it? Imagine the turmoil that was going on inside his mind when that came out. It was so much to the point where they had to bring in Elon Musk to stand next to Trump in the Oval Office a day or two later. to reassure everybody that Elon Musk wasn't the shadow president or co-president, and yet that's how he appeared during that particular episode. You're absolutely right. He does have his own House organ. He has Fox News. He has conservative media. There's no question about it. But he craves attention. He craves the recognition of the mainstream press, the legacy media, whatever you want to call it. And if that is slowly taken away from him, or if the press takes a stand and says, listen, we're just not going to cover this stuff today unless you let the Associated Press back in, I think that there would be a real soul searching, if they could find one, inside the White House as to whether or not they should be doing this to the Associated Press. I think it's worth a try. I know there are other folks in the press corps who say, you know what, that's going too far. But, listen to the way he was talking about it yesterday. He was just dismissive of the idea that they should be let back in. It's outrageous.
I know a letter has gone, because the Daily Beast signed it alongside the New Yorker and at the Atlantic, to Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff, asking her to reinstate the AP. I don't know if that will have any impact, but I do agree with you that he craves the respectability of the legacy media. Jim, you covered Donald Trump in his first presidency. You got a week in with his second presidency. What is the difference you see?
I think this time around, what we're seeing is perhaps even more disturbing than what we saw the first time around. When he does the blanket pardons for the January 6 rioters and insurrectionists, that was, I think, an assault on our democracy. The way that the Justice Department started to notify FBI agents and other members of the Justice Department that that they needed to be identified because of their work on the January 6 case or on the criminal cases pertaining to Donald Trump. I mean, those were acts of intimidation. And now what you're seeing across the federal government with Elon Musk and Doge, I mean, just keep in mind, just the other day, it was just a couple of days ago in a court filing, the White House, the Trump administration said that Elon Musk is not technically the administrator of Doge. And then the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, I believe, was asked yesterday afternoon, well, who's in charge of Doge? And she couldn't say. And these are the people who are going through various agencies. They're over at the IRS right now trying to get access to sensitive taxpayer information in this country. And folks who are overseas might look at all of this and find this to be highly entertaining.
I don't think that people overseas are regarding this with any type of amusement. I think people are really scared. I know that I have tons of family. I grew up in Canada, and Canada is not reflecting on this with amusement.
China and Russia might be laughing all the way to the bank.
U.S. adversaries are having a field day with us right now. When Trump goes out there and accuses Ukraine of causing the war in Ukraine, those are Russian talking points.
Right, yeah. Accusing Ukraine of invading itself, basically.
Yeah.
Do
you have, now that you're free, now that you are unleashed, are there ways that you reflect upon just kind of the media in general leading up to this election? The coverage of Biden was not adequate. It was insufficient for the last
his mental state and so on.
Yes, about his decline.
How difficult was it to cover Biden's actual?
I covered it. I had David Axelrod on. I had David Gergen on. I had Douglas Brinkley came on, the historian. All three of them came on my show and said that that the president should consider not running for re-election or stepping aside. And so there are folks who covered it. I think there's sort of a generalization that, that this wasn't covered a whole lot. I mean, it was right in front of people's eyes. And, I do think to some extent, if you were to do kind of a cocktail napkin political analysis of all of this, I mean, Biden had the opportunity to step aside much sooner than when he did. And that was what he promised to the American people. He said, I'm going to be a bridge to the next generation of Democratic leaders. And he did not uphold that promise. And I think that ended up causing a bit of a chain reaction in the Democratic Party that resulted in Kamala Harris just not having enough time to introduce herself to voters before the November election.
Why was the debate such a shock to people when Biden was unable to finish his sentences?
I was, anchoring at that point, but I think it was right in front of people's eyes. I get what you're saying. I and others covered it. It's not like it was uncovered, and it was on all the time on Fox. I mean, getting back to that, They covered it like it was like Watergate.
Is there a question in all of the years that you've covered Trump, is there a question you wish that you had asked him, that you wish that you had had the opportunity to ask him?
I went to one of his events that he had shortly after leaving the presidency. He went down to the border with the governor of Texas, and they were doing this dog and pony show about some of the portions of the wall that he had built and how Texas was trying to defend the border during the Biden presidency and so on. And I tried to shout a question to Donald Trump and ask him if he was apologetic at all for January 6th. And I'll just say it right now on your program. I challenge him to a sit-down interview. I would like to sit down with Donald Trump. And I think the thing he needs to be asked more than anything else is whether he has any remorse, any regret for what took place on January 6th. He attempted to overthrow an election in this country. He's shown no remorse for it. He continues to peddle the lie to this day that he somehow won the 2020 election and that this was all stolen from him. I mean, this is one of the problems that we're dealing with right now, guys, is that he is continuing to turn the truth upside down. And in his world, it is black as white. It's through the looking glass. It's Alice in Wonderland stuff. And I think it's highly destructive for this country. And it's all over TikTok. It's all over social media. This propaganda that is pumped out by the right in support of him. And it's highly destructive. And one of the things that I would like to see, and one of the things I'm going to try to do on my show and moving forward, is I would love to see like a NATO alliance for the truth in this country. We need people who are committed to a sane world of reality and truth telling to kind of come together and call these guys out. And it can happen in mainstream media, legacy media, but I think it's going to happen in independent media, and independent media is going to lead the way.
Well, you've also got in Elon Musk, the owner of X, previously known as Twitter, which is also incredibly difficult to overcome because it sets the agenda for media too. I mean, people are still using it.
And that's when you were getting back to like, what is it like this time around versus last time around? Mm-hmm. Last time around in 2017, Twitter was Twitter. It was not this propaganda platform. And this time around, it is very different. And so, X or whatever you want to call it, it is just essentially a propaganda arm of Donald Trump and of the right in this country. And, what I used to say when I covered the White House the first time around is that Fox was essentially state-supported media. If you saw the interview last night with Hannity and Donald Trump and Elon Musk, it was the kind of fawning interview that you would see in autocratic countries when the state media would come in and sit down with the dear leader and ask a slew of questions. It is nothing remotely close to independent media. So going back to the conversation about, well, what about the press and what if they walk out and everything else? He's going to continue to do this state media like performance stuff on places like Fox. And I think that it's really important at this point for folks to kind of hold the line when it comes to, holding their feet to the fire and sticking to the facts.
Why do you think Steve Bannon's rhetoric about Elon Musk is not taking hold just yet?
It's a really good question. I wonder what is going on there. Is it, is it Steve Bannon is sort of jealous that Elon Musk has become the Steve Bannon of the second Trump administration, or Steve Bannon is a populist and he sees, Elon Musk perhaps in the way that tried and true conservatives used to look at tech billionaires in this country, and that is with some suspicion. Whereas Trump has sort of handed over his presidency to this guy, and Steve Bannon's kind of like the OG populist part of the Trump movement, and I think he rightly sees that. I can't believe I'm saying this, that I agree with Steve Bannon on something.
It's hard. That's difficult.
It's sort of like the horseshoe coming together, the ends of the horseshoe coming together with the three shirts and everything. But I think he's right about Elon Musk, and there is something sort of strangely not in keeping with the American experience in seeing somebody who looks like a shadow president, looks like a co-president, looks like the presidency's been delegated to him. What the hell's going on? We have, this is not the captain in Tennille.
Yeah, we need you to find out.
So you join a caravan of refugees from CNN. There's Don Lemon, there's Chris Wallace. Don Lemon has now got a big band of followers, as have you. In fact, I think you've probably got more followers now on your own show than you had at CNN. Are you planning? Don said that when he hears from viewers, they want him to sort of dance around his living room. You're in your living room now, or you're in a back bedroom. I don't know where are you, in fact?
The dining room.
Okay, you're
Duke
in
has
your
already come
dining
over
room.
a couple of times. He's tried to make some cameos. So,
what are you planning to do that's extra? Are you planning to, do
Cooking
shirtless
segments or-
Cooking
broadcasts?
segments.
Yeah, cooking segments.
That's right.
What's going to be your differentiator?
that's a good question. I think, we could do stupid pet tricks like the old David Letterman show, perhaps something like that. Duke only knows a few tricks. Might be a short segment. I'm trying to figure it all out.
Right.
One of the things I have to tell you is that I'm sort of building the plane mid-flight right now.
Right.
I saw that when you were trying to get April Ryan on the show. You just interviewed Michael Cohen, and you were like, "I think April's coming. I'm just going to press this button," and I could see you looking that the sort of panic of the middle-aged who's been supported by a great tech team, and the thing of having to do it oneself.
As my phone just goes off. Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things I've been doing so far with the show, and it's something that I really love doing, is I've been reconnecting with old friends. And April is one of those friends. She and I started working together covering the Obama White House. And as April will tell you, she's been doing this for 28 years. She's, I think, the longest serving Black journalist in White House Correspondents Association history. She's a living legend. And, what the thing that we always come back to is that it's not supposed to be like this. April covered George W. Bush, pretty conservative as it comes. And he just couldn't have been nicer to April
Right.
Ryan. He was a gentleman. He showed respect to her.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of what I have a problem with what I see right now. We have to get back to respecting one another as human beings. For the Republicans out there who are, I think, struggling and soul searching right now, and they're waking up this morning after hearing Trump accuse the Ukrainians of causing the war and all this, there has to be an internal
Right.
battle that they're waging right now. And my message is like, hey, there's still time for you to come out and start telling the truth and join the rest of us here and calling this stuff out, because it is all about decency. It is all about respect. And that's one of the lessons I always take away from April is, she has stood there, and you think I've taken some stuff. She has stood there and taken so much stuff from this president, and she just does it with a smile on her face and just with a stiff upper lip and just continues to do the job.
Yeah, there was a really interesting article in the Times this morning, actually, about just that, about about Mormons and trying to restore kind of civil discourse in a conservative worldview. I thought that was pretty interesting.
There are a lot of folks out there, as you were saying, Samantha, not just here in the U.S., but around the world, who are deeply worried about what is going on in this country. And I think they want people to speak from the heart. I think they want people to tell their friends, their neighbors, their relatives, whatever, what's really on their mind. And what we're experiencing right now in this country is highly disturbing. It is highly unusual. It is not in keeping with the American experience or the American way of life. And I think we just have to keep saying that and be unafraid in saying that. And so the thing I get from people is, and it's extremely humbling and extremely moving to me, and sometimes I have a tough time dealing with it, people are grateful. And I'm so touched by that and so moved by that. I'm so thankful for that. Yes, there are folks who don't want to give you the time of day and so on. That's fine. But as I said before, I still have hope. I think those folks are going to come back to our point of view on this, not left or right, but in favor of the truth and the facts and decency in this country.
Jim, we're grateful that you joined us. We wish you luck as you create your own media empire, and we look forward to watching you deliver the news and your interviews shirtless. I think that would be a good differentiator.
Like, wait a minute,
I'm
I'm going to
telling
get to
you,
the gym.
That's your differentiator.
Fantastic.
I'll work on that for next time, ladies.
Okay, thank you.
Lovely to be with you.
Come back and see us soon.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Great to see you.
bye.
Bye-bye.